Why are you staring in surprise, cowboy? Don't you remember me? I'm your childhood love. The morning sun had just begun to rise over the wide open fields surrounding Daniel's ranch. The sky was painted in shades of soft orange and pink, and the fresh scent of dew-covered grass filled the air. Daniel stood by the fence, his hands gripping the wooden rail, watching his herd of horses graze peacefully. Life on the ranch had always been simple. Yes, every day followed the rhythm of the land, the weather, and the animals. He liked it that way. Quiet, steady, and predictable. Daniel was tall and strong, a man shaped by years of hard work under the sun. Brask, his skin was tanned from long hours outside, and his hands were rough from handling ropes and tools. Despite his rugged appearance, his eyes had a gentleness that showed a thoughtful, reflective side. He often found himself lost in his own thoughts while riding across the fields or mending fences, thinking about life, about choices, about memories he sometimes wished he could forget. Today, like every other day, Daniel had a long list of chores. There were fences to check, horses to feed, the barn to clean, and the small garden behind his house that needed watering. It was a routine he had followed for years, and he had grown comfortable in it. He liked having control over his life, predictable days, and the quiet solitude that the ranch offered. But there was something missing, something he couldn't quite name. Over the years, he had grown used to the feeling, convincing himself that contentment was all he needed. As he bent down to tie the feed bucket to the stable post, he heard the soft crunch of footsteps approaching from the dirt path that led to the main gate. At first, he thought it might be a neighbor or a visitor coming to buy some fresh eggs or milk. But as he looked up, he froze. Standing at the gate was a woman, and for a moment, Daniel could not breathe. Blinked several times, convinced his eyes were deceiving him. But the figure remained, her silhouette framed by the morning light, her presence unmistakable. She was smiling slightly, a smile that seemed familiar in the deepest corner of his heart. And then she spoke. Her voice was soft, yet it carried an unmistakable warmth. "Why are you staring in surprise, cowboy? Don't you remember me? I'm your childhood love." Daniel's mind went blank. Des, childhood love? The words echoed in his head like a bell he hadn't heard in years. He wanted to speak, to answer, but no words came. His throat felt tight, his heart beating faster than it had in years. He took a step forward, then stopped, unsure if he should believe what he was seeing.
He studied her face carefully.
The eyes, the same sparkling green eyes that had once captured his young heart. The smile, gentle, kind, with just a hint of mischief that reminded him of the days they had played in the fields near their old homes. The voice, soft, melodic, and familiar, carrying a melody that had once soothed his worries as a child. Every detail was the same, yet different. Time had touched her gently, shaping her into a woman who carried both innocence and strength. "Emily?" he finally whispered, the name barely leaving his lips. It felt foreign and familiar all at once, like a dream he had almost forgotten. She nodded, her eyes twinkling with a mixture of joy and uncertainty. "Yes, Daniel, it's me." "Emily." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The world seemed to pause around them, the horses grazing, the wind brushing through the fields, the sun climbing higher into the sky. Nothing mattered except the sudden reunion, the realization that someone from a distant, forgotten past had appeared in front of him. Daniel tried to recall the memories of his childhood, memories he had tucked away for years. He remembered a little girl with messy brown hair who lived a few houses down the road. They had spent countless afternoons running through the meadows, climbing trees, and sharing secrets that felt important at the time. She had been his partner in adventures, his confidant, the one person who had understood him in ways no one else could.
And then, life had changed.
Families moved, paths diverged, and the little girl named Emily disappeared from his world. He had thought of her sometimes. Yes, in fleeting moments. A sudden memory of her laughter, a picture of her running barefoot through the fields. But as the years passed, he had convinced himself that childhood feelings were just that. Childhood feelings, meaningless in the adult world. And yet here she was, standing before him, reminding him of everything he had tried to forget. Emily took a step closer, her eyes searching his face for recognition, for a spark of memory. "Race, I've wondered if I'd ever see you again," she said softly. "After all these years, I never thought I would." Daniel felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, to understand why she had come, but all he could do was stand there, staring, trying to make sense of the reality that had suddenly entered his life. I don't know what to say," he finally admitted. His voice was rough, unfamiliar even to him. "I never expected." Emily smiled again, a smile that reminded him of sunlit afternoons and secret hideaways. "I didn't expect to see you either," she said.
But life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it?
He nodded slowly, feeling a strange mixture of fear and excitement. His life had been predictable, safe and steady.
And now, with her presence, everything seemed uncertain, thrilling, and a little overwhelming. He realized that the quiet life he had built on the ranch had never truly filled the space in his heart where memories of her lingered. For a few minutes, they simply looked at each other, letting the silence speak for them. The wind rustled through the leaves, carrying the faint scent of wild flowers, and Daniel felt as if time itself had paused to give them this moment. He remembered the way they used to run through the fields, chasing each other, laughing and dreaming of endless possibilities. And now, as an adult, he felt that same spark of connection, alive and undeniable. Emily broke the silence. "I wanted to see you," she said, her voice steady but gentle.
I've come back here for a reason, and part of it is because I wanted to find you, to see if you were still the same person I remembered.
Daniel swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. He thought about all the years he had spent alone, the routines, the quiet evenings, the work that kept him busy but never fully satisfied. And now, standing here, he realized that part of what he had been missing had been her, the laughter, the companionship, the shared dreams of youth that had once seemed so important.
I'm still me," he said finally, his voice gaining strength. "I've changed, I guess. But some things, some memories."
Emily's eyes softened, and she reached out a hand, brushing lightly against his arm. "Some things never leave," she agreed. "And some people never truly go away." Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine, a mixture of nostalgia and a strange new hope. He had spent so long living in the safety of his routines, afraid of surprises, afraid of change. And now, here was Emily, a living reminder that life could still bring unexpected joy, even after years of quiet solitude. The horses neighed softly, as if acknowledging the reunion, and Daniel realized the world around him had not changed, but his place in it had. Something had shifted. The familiar landscape of the ranch now felt different, infused with a new energy, a possibility he had not dared to imagine.
Emily smiled again, this time with a hint of playfulness.
"Do you remember the old tree by the river?" she asked. "The one we used to climb and make promises to each other?" Daniel chuckled softly, a sound he hadn't made in a long time.
I do, he said, his voice warm. We promised we'd never forget each other, didn't we? Emily nodded.
Even if life took us apart, I always remembered. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. The years of separation, the pain of losing touch, the longing he had buried deep inside, all of it came rushing back. Bravest, and yet there was a lightness now, a chance to reconnect, to rediscover what had been lost. As the morning sun climbed higher, Daniel and Emily began to walk slowly along the dirt path, talking, laughing softly and sharing memories that had been tucked away in the corners of their hearts. For Daniel, it felt like coming home, not just to the ranch, but to a part of himself he had forgotten. And for Emily, it was a chance to reclaim a friendship, a bond, a love that had never truly faded. In that quiet morning, with the world stretching endlessly around them, two childhood souls had found each other again. And though the days ahead were uncertain, one thing was clear: the past had returned, bringing with it a promise of something beautiful, unexpected, and real. After that quiet morning, Daniel and Emily continued to spend time together at the ranch. At first it felt strange, almost surreal. Daniel had grown used to his solitary life, waking up to the sound of the wind and the animals. And now there was someone familiar, someone from a past he thought was gone forever. Emily had returned, not just to see him, but to reconnect with memories that had been tucked away in both of their hearts for years. Emily moved around the ranch with a confidence that surprised Daniel. She laughed at the jokes he made, even if they were small or clumsy, and she asked questions about the land, the animals, and his life. She was curious about the ranch, but more than that, she seemed curious about Daniel himself. Every glance, every word carried a quiet warmth that made Daniel feel alive in a way he hadn't felt in years. "Do you remember the river?" Emily asked one afternoon as they sat on the porch watching the sun dip low over the horizon. Her voice was soft, and her eyes were fixed on the distant trees, as if she could see something only she could remember. Daniel nodded slowly. "Of course. That's where we used to go swimming. We would climb the old tree and jump into the water, even though it scared us half to death." Emily smiled, her gaze meeting his.
I remember you always went first, pretending you weren't afraid, just so I would follow. Daniel laughed, the sound carrying across the fields. "And you followed, even though I knew you were scared too." They shared a comfortable silence after that, filled with memories that were both bittersweet and joyful. Daniel realized that he had missed this, having someone who truly knew him, someone who could bring laughter and light even after so many years. Emily, on the other hand, seemed to feel the same way. Kind roams. She often spoke of her childhood memories, telling him stories of small adventures, little games, and secrets they had shared. Every story reminded Daniel of the deep bond they had once shared, a bond that time had never fully broken. As days passed, Emily began helping out on the ranch. She fed the animals, tended to the garden, and even helped Daniel mend fences. At first he had been hesitant to let her work alongside him, but soon he realized that her presence made the chores lighter, the work easier, and the days brighter. She was not just a memory. She was real, capable, and full of life. One evening, as they sat by the fire in Daniel's small cabin, Emily brought up a question that had been on her mind for some time. "Daniel, why did we stop writing to each other? After our families moved away, I mean. I never got a single letter from you." Daniel looked down, feeling a mixture of guilt and sadness.
I don't know, he admitted. I thought I had sent a letter once, but it never reached you.
And then, I guess I stopped trying. Life got in the way, I suppose. Emily reached out and gently touched his hand. Things happen. But I want you to know that I never forgot you, not for a single day. Daniel's heart ached with the weight of her words. All those years of silence, all the lost time, and yet here she was, forgiving and understanding. He realized that Emily had held on to their bond, even when life had forced them apart. He had been so focused on the routines of his life that he had almost forgotten the depth of what they had shared. Now, seeing her again, he understood how much he had missed. They spent the next few days revisiting old places, walking through the meadows where they had once played, sitting by the river where they had shared so many secrets. Each place carried a flood of memories, some funny, some sad, but all precious. Daniel felt a connection to Emily that was deeper than friendship, something he had never experienced with anyone else. It was as if no time had passed, yet at the same time they had grown into new versions of themselves, older, wiser, and more aware of life's challenges. One afternoon, while they were fixing a fence near the edge of the property, Emily paused and looked at Daniel seriously.
Do you ever think about what could have been? She asked. Daniel hesitated.
The question was simple, but it carried years of emotion. Sometimes, he admitted, I wonder if things would have been different if we had stayed in touch, if life hadn't pulled us apart. But then I think maybe we needed to grow separately so we could find our way back to each other. Emily smiled softly, her eyes reflecting the golden light of the afternoon sun. Maybe, she said. But I never stopped thinking about you, Daniel. Even when I was far away, I remembered you, our adventures, and the promises we made. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. He had spent years convincing himself that childhood love was something fleeting, something that did not last. Yet here was Emily, standing before him, proving that some connections never truly fade. He realized that the bond they had shared as children had matured into something stronger, something that could survive distance, time, and silence. The days that followed were filled with small joys. Helping Daniel with ranch work, sharing meals, telling stories by the fire, and watching the stars at night. Emily often talked about her experiences after leaving the town, the places she had seen, the people she had met, and the challenges she had faced. Daniel listened, fascinated by her stories, realizing how much she had grown and changed, yet how much of the girl he once knew still remained. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching fireflies dance in the garden, Emily spoke quietly. Do you ever regret anything, Daniel? He thought for a moment, staring at the glowing lights.
I regret that we lost touch, he admitted.
I regret the years I didn't know where you were, didn't know if you were safe, happy. I regret letting time pass without trying harder to find you.
Emily reached over and held his hand. We can't change the past, she said.
But we can make the present matter. We can choose to be part of each other's lives again. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest, a feeling he had not known in a long time. It was hope, mixed with excitement, and the promise of new beginnings. He realized that Emily's return was not just a coincidence. It was an opportunity, a second chance at a connection that had never truly died. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Emily grew closer. They worked side by side on the ranch, shared meals, laughed at small mistakes, and supported each other through challenges. Daniel found himself looking forward to her presence, her laughter, and her stories. Emily, too, seemed to thrive in the peacefulness of the ranch, finding joy in the simplicity of the work and the beauty of their renewed friendship. One afternoon, as they rode horses across the open fields, Emily asked, Do you remember the promise we made under the old tree by the river? Daniel smiled, a memory flashing in his mind. Yes, he said. We promised we'd always be there for each other no matter what. Even if life took us in different directions, we'd never forget. Emily nodded, her eyes shining. I never forgot, she said. And now, I want to honor that promise again. I want us to be part of each other's lives fully this time. Daniel felt a surge of emotion. The past had returned, bringing with it memories, love, and the chance to start anew. He realized that the life he had built alone was no longer enough, that he wanted Emily in it, not just as a memory, but as a real presence, a partner, and a friend. As the sun set, casting a warm golden glow over the fields, Daniel and Emily rode side by side, feeling the wind on their faces and the soft rhythm of the horses beneath them. The past and present intertwined, creating a sense of completeness that neither of them had known before. They had found each other again, and this time they were determined not to let go.
For Daniel, the return of Emily was more than a surprise. It was a reminder that some connections, some loves, are never truly lost.
For Emily, it was proof that hope and persistence could bring back what was once thought gone forever. Together, they faced the future with open hearts, ready to embrace whatever life had in store, knowing that the bond they shared as children had grown into something enduring, real, and full of possibility. And in that moment, surrounded by the quiet beauty of the ranch and the warmth of the setting sun, Daniel and Emily understood that love, even when delayed by years, could still bloom, bringing light, joy, and hope to those willing to embrace it. After several weeks of reconnecting, Daniel and Emily grew closer in ways that neither of them had expected. Their friendship, once paused by years of separation, was now blossoming into a deeper connection. Each day brought new conversations, laughter, and shared moments that reminded them both of the bond they had formed long ago. But as comfortable as things felt, old fears and uncertainties began to surface, testing their renewed relationship. One morning, Daniel woke early, as he always did, and went to the barn to check on the horses. The sky was painted with soft pink and purple hues, and the air smelled of fresh earth and hay. Emily had joined him, carrying a basket of fresh feed. As she set it down, she smiled warmly.
"Morning, Daniel," she said. "Did you sleep well?"
Daniel nodded, giving her a small smile in return. Yes. And you?
I did, Emily replied, her eyes lingering on him for a moment before looking away.
There was a quiet tension, a thought she had been holding back. Finally, she spoke.
"Daniel, I want to ask you something. You've seemed happy with me here, but do you ever worry about what the future might bring?" Daniel paused, considering her words.
He had been so caught up in the joy of seeing her again that he hadn't fully faced the reality of what it might mean to have Emily back in his life. "I think about it sometimes," he admitted. "Life hasn't been easy for either of us. We've changed, and we're different people now."
"I don't want to lose what we have again," Emily nodded, understanding the fear in his voice.
"I feel the same. I've spent years wondering if we'd ever meet again. And now that we have, I don't want to make mistakes." Disc.
"I don't want to let the past or fear get in the way."
They worked in silence for a while, feeding the horses and cleaning the stalls. The morning air was filled with the sounds of animals and the rustling of leaves. Despite the serious conversation, there was a sense of calm between them, a shared understanding that whatever happened, they would face it together. Later that afternoon, as they rested by the river where they had once played as children, Daniel spoke about his past struggles. "You know, Emily," he said quietly, skipping a small stone across the water, "there were times when I felt like I was stuck, but life felt heavy, and I thought I was meant to be alone." Emily listened intently, her eyes softening. "I understand, Daniel. I've had my own struggles too. Moving away, starting over in new places. It wasn't easy. But thinking about you, about us, kept me going. It reminded me that some connections are worth holding on to." Daniel looked at her, a mixture of surprise and gratitude in his eyes. "I didn't realize that—"
"I didn't know you felt the same way," Emily smiled gently.
I never stopped caring. Not even for a moment. The confession hung in the air, unspoken yet fully understood. Both of them felt the weight of years lost and the joy of rediscovering something precious.
But as the evening shadows lengthened, Daniel realized that there were still parts of their past they needed to confront.
Emily, he said cautiously, there's something I've been meaning to ask.
When we were children, we made all those promises to each other, about always being there, about never forgetting. Do you think, can we really honor those promises now after so many years? Emily thought for a moment. Her gaze focused on the river's calm surface. I believe we can, she said finally. Promises are only as strong as the people who keep them. We've both changed, but our connection, that never went away. If we choose to honor it, we can make it real again. Daniel felt a warmth spread through his chest. Her words gave him hope, but also made him realize that reconnecting fully would require more than just memories. It would require trust, patience, and the courage to face their past fears. Over the next several days, they spent time not only working on the ranch, but also exploring the surrounding countryside. They hiked through the hills, wandered through quiet forests, and sat under the stars, sharing stories about their lives apart. Daniel learned about Emily's experiences in the city, her successes, and her disappointments. Emily discovered Daniel's quiet determination, his resilience, and the deep care he had for the land and animals he tended. Each story, each shared moment deepened their understanding and respect for each other. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily looked at Daniel with a serious expression. Daniel, I have to be honest, she said softly. There are moments when I'm scared. Scared that reconnecting might not be enough. That we're not the same people we were back then, and maybe we won't fit into each other's lives now. Daniel took her hand gently, squeezing it reassuringly. I know, he said. I've felt the same fear. But I also know that the bond we share is stronger than that fear. We can't let worry take away what we have. We have to try fully and trust that the connection we've rebuilt is real. Emily nodded, a tear slipping down her cheek. You're right. I trust you, Daniel. And I want to try, no matter what. Days. The next few days tested them in small ways. Daniel faced challenges with the ranch, a broken fence, a sick horse, and unpredictable weather. Emily was there, helping without complaint, learning how to handle the tasks and offering support when Daniel felt overwhelmed. Their teamwork was natural, their bond growing stronger with each shared responsibility. One afternoon, while mending the barn roof, Daniel slipped and nearly fell. Emily caught him just in time, holding him close. Careful! She exclaimed, her heart racing.
I can't lose you again, Daniel laughed, though his hands trembled slightly from the scare. I think I've learned my lesson, he said. With you around, I have to be extra careful. Emily smiled, brushing dust from his shirt.
Maybe we both have to be careful, she said softly.
Careful with our hearts, careful with each other. We've been given a second chance.
We can't take it for granted. As the days turned into weeks, their bond deepened even further. They shared quiet mornings in the barn, long walks through the fields, and evenings by the fire, talking until the stars filled the sky. Daniel realized that Emily's presence had brought light and joy into his life in ways he hadn't known he was missing. Emily, too, felt a sense of belonging she hadn't experienced in years, as if she had finally found her way back home, not just to the ranch, but to Daniel. However, the closeness also brought old wounds to the surface. Both of them had changed over the years, and moments of misunderstanding and fear occasionally arose. Daniel sometimes worried about losing control of his life again, while Emily occasionally felt insecure about fitting into a life that had continued without her. They faced these challenges openly, talking through misunderstandings and fears with patience and honesty. Each difficult conversation strengthened their trust and commitment. One evening, as they watched the sunset from the porch, Emily spoke quietly.
Daniel, do you ever think about the future? About us and what we might have together?
I do, he said. I think about it every day. I've realized that I don't want to live my life without you. I don't want to let fear or the past hold us back. I want to be with you fully, no matter what challenges come our way. Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes.
I feel the same. I've waited a long time for this moment, and I won't let it slip away.
We've both grown. We've both changed, but I know that together we can face anything.
As night fell and the stars sparkled overhead, Daniel and Emily sat in quiet comfort, holding hands and watching the fireflies in the garden.
The past had returned, bringing with it memories, love, and the chance to build something real and lasting. They understood that life would not always be easy, but they were ready to face the future together, with hearts open and full of hope. In those moments, surrounded by the gentle sounds of the ranch and the soft glow of the moon, Daniel and Emily realized that the bond they had shared as children had grown into something enduring and true. It was no longer just a memory. It was a living connection, a love that had survived years of separation, distance, and time. They knew challenges would come, misunderstandings might arise, and fears would sometimes threaten to pull them apart. But they also knew that the trust, patience, and understanding they had cultivated would guide them through. And for the first time in many years, both of them felt whole, ready to embrace the present, and excited for the future that they would build together. The ranch, the fields, the river, and the old tree by the river, all the places that had once been part of their childhood adventures, now held new meaning. They were no longer just memories of the past. They were symbols of resilience, hope, and the enduring power of love. Daniel and Emily had rediscovered each other, and with that rediscovery came the promise of a shared journey, filled with joy, understanding, and a love that had truly stood the test of time. The days that followed felt like a new beginning for Daniel and Emily. Their bond had grown deeper than ever, yet there was a quiet tension between them. Both knew that rekindling a childhood love was one thing, but building a life together as adults was a different challenge. Daniel had lived alone for years, relying on routine and solitude, while Emily had grown independent, confident, and strong from her experiences in the city. Both had changed, and both knew that taking this next step required courage and honesty. One crisp morning, Daniel woke earlier than usual. The ranch was quiet except for the soft sounds of the horses and the distant wind in the trees. He walked toward the barn, thinking about the weeks he had spent with Emily. He realized how much he had come to depend on her presence, not just for help around the ranch, but for the comfort, laughter, and connection she brought into his life. The thought made his heart both heavy and light, because he knew the time had come to face the truth of his feelings. Emily appeared at the barn a few minutes later, carrying a basket of apples.
Said,
She smiled as she approached him. "Good morning," she said.
"Beautiful day, isn't it?" Daniel returned her smile, though it was tinged with nervousness. "It is," he replied. "Emily, I need to talk to you about something." She paused, her eyes showing concern but also trust. "What is it, Daniel?" He took a deep breath, trying to find the right words. "Despair. I've spent so many years alone, thinking I could handle life by myself. But having you here, it's made me realize that I don't want to be alone anymore. I don't want to lose you again."
I want you in my life, not just as a memory or a friend, but as someone I can share my whole life with. Emily's eyes softened and she stepped closer.
"Daniel, I felt the same way," she said quietly. "I've always wanted to be part of your life again."
I don't want to let fear or the past keep us apart, but I was waiting for you to say it first.
Daniel felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling of relief, joy, and anticipation all at once. They stood in the morning light, hands brushing, hearts pounding, knowing that this was a turning point. It was no longer just about memories or childhood promises. It was about choosing each other in the present and building a future together. Over the next few days, they discussed their hopes, dreams, and concerns. They talked about the challenges of blending their lives, of balancing independence with togetherness, and of creating a life that honored both their pasts and their present. Daniel shared his vision for the ranch, the work that needed to be done, and how he wanted Emily to be involved. Emily spoke about her career, her experiences in the city, and her desire to stay true to herself while also supporting their shared life. Their conversations were sometimes serious, sometimes playful, but always full of honesty. They laughed about old memories, debated small decisions, and comforted each other when fears arose. Daniel realized that love was not just about shared memories or feelings. It was about communication, understanding, and the willingness to face challenges together. Emily understood that compromise did not mean losing herself, but rather finding balance with someone she cared deeply about.
One afternoon, as they walked along the riverbank, Emily asked, "Daniel,
Do you ever worry that we might lose each other again?
He looked at her, taking her hand gently. I do, he admitted.
I've spent so long alone, it's hard to imagine being with someone and not losing them. But I also know that we're stronger now, and we've learned from the past.
I trust us." Emily nodded, a tear glistening in her eye.
I trust us too. And I know that no matter what comes, we'll face it together. Days turned into weeks, and the seasons slowly began to change. The ranch became a place of joy, laughter, and renewed life. Daniel and Emily worked together, planting new crops, fixing old fences, and caring for the animals. Every task, every shared responsibility strengthened their bond. But the most important growth happened quietly, in their hearts. They were learning to trust, to communicate, and to love not just the memory of who they once were, but the people they had become. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Daniel turned to Emily. There's something I want to do.
He said softly.
She looked at him curiously. I want us to make new memories, he continued. Not just the ones we had as children, but memories that are ours as adults. I want to plan for the future, together, Bruce. I want you by my side through everything life brings. Emily's eyes shone with emotion. Daniel, I've wanted that too, she said. All these years I dreamed of being with you again, and now that we have this chance, I don't want to waste it. They embraced, holding each other tightly as the sky turned shades of pink, purple, and gold. It was a moment of closure and a moment of beginning. They were no longer just two people reunited. They were partners, ready to face life together. The following weeks were filled with small celebrations of their renewed bond. They hosted a small gathering at the ranch, inviting neighbors and friends who had known them since childhood. Laughter filled the air as they shared stories, played music, and enjoyed simple meals together. Emily's warmth and kindness charmed everyone, while Daniel's quiet strength and gentle humor made him a beloved presence. Everyone could see that something special had returned, something that had grown even stronger with time. But the story of Daniel and Emily was not just about joy. It was also about overcoming fears. One afternoon, while riding across the fields, Emily stopped suddenly. Daniel, can I ask you something? Of course, he replied. I'm scared, she admitted. Scared that life might take us apart again. Scared that we might face challenges we can't handle. How do we know we'll be okay? Daniel took her hands in his, looking deeply into her eyes. Emily, life will have its challenges. That's true. But I know one thing. We'll face them together. We won't let fear control us.
We've been given a second chance, and I won't let it slip away. I promise you, we'll be okay.
Emily smiled, tears forming but a sense of peace settling in her heart. I trust you, Daniel. And I trust us. Time passed, and Daniel and Emily built a life together filled with love, understanding, and shared responsibilities.
They celebrated small victories, comforted each other during setbacks, and cherished the simple pleasures of ranch life. They planted a small orchard, repaired old barns, and even adopted a few rescued animals. Each day was a testament to their teamwork, commitment, and growing love.
One evening, as they watched fireflies dance in the garden, Daniel spoke quietly.
Emily, I know we faced so many years apart, but being with you now, I feel like I've found home. You're my home, Emily! Emily leaned her head on his shoulder, smiling softly.
And you're mine, Daniel. No matter what happens, I know we'll face it together.
Breathe. As the stars appeared in the sky, Daniel and Emily sat in quiet comfort, holding hands and reflecting on their journey. They had faced separation, distance, and uncertainty, yet here they were, stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever. They had learned that love is not just about passion or memories. It is about trust, patience, and choosing each other every day. Their love story, once interrupted by life's circumstances, had now found its full expression. Childhood promises had matured into adult commitments, and shared memories had grown into shared dreams. Daniel and Emily had discovered that sometimes life's detours lead to the most meaningful destinations. As the moon rose over the ranch, casting silver light over the fields, Daniel and Emily made a quiet vow to each other. They would face the future together, no matter what challenges arose. They would nurture their love, protect their bond, and cherish every moment they had been given. For they knew that life had given them a rare gift, the chance to rediscover each other, and to turn that rediscovery into a lifetime of happiness.
In the following months, their life on the ranch flourished.
Daniel and Emily continued their work with joy, laughter, and shared effort. They explored new projects, improved the land, and celebrated every small success together. But the greatest success was the deep love they shared, a love that had survived time, distance, and uncertainty, and had now blossomed into something enduring and beautiful. Daniel often thought back to the morning when Emily had first returned to the ranch, when her voice had called him Cowboy and reminded him of the love he thought he had lost. That moment had changed everything. What had started as a surprise encounter had grown into a story of hope, trust, and rediscovered love. And every day that followed reminded him that some connections are timeless, some loves are meant to endure no matter the years, the miles, or the challenges in between. And so, under the wide-open skies of the ranch, with the gentle hum of life around them and the warmth of their hearts intertwined, Daniel and Emily embraced their second chance. Together, they had not only rediscovered love, but had built a life filled with joy, purpose, and the quiet certainty that they were exactly where they belonged, side by side, forever.